Hi, I'm Elisabeth. Welcome back to Oregon Quilting. And today we are here at Champoeg State Park. And I have with me Mark, who's he takes care of a lot of things.
I do. I'm one of the costumed interpreters here in the Visitor Center.
Okay.
And we just share with people and encourage them to tell us their stories as they look through the exhibits here in the center.
Okay.
And we have a number of special programs, and that's what you're here for today, is for our quilting program. And Champoeg has been around for a long time. It's actually the birthplace of Oregon, and that's why it's a state park. There was a vote that took place here in 1843 that established the provisional government in Oregon that was the first government here outside of the Hudson's Bay Company. And later on, eventually, there was a monument put up to that vote, and then this was established as a state park. And in the most recent additions were in 1977, when this visitor center was built and included exhibit areas behind us and an auditorium where the quilt show takes place. And we have a regular ongoing set of programs each weekend. And beginning in July, there will be living history events going on. But many of them are like today, the quilting program. And we've had Founders Day program, and we'll have Apple Festival and things of that nature throughout the summer. And so we do everything from blacksmithing to quilting and to women's crafts, you know, the washing and cleaning and things like that.
Okay.
So we have about 20 people in costumes that work in the exhibit area behind us. And but we have then paid coordinators that work with the Friends of Historic Champoeg that are employed by them, who organize these programs. Okay. And you'll meet later on one of those people is Corinne Flake, and she's our new program coordinator.
Wonderful.
And she's organized the quilt show for today.
Okay. So how large is Champoeg Park?
Champoeg Park itself is 614 acres. We have about 75 campsites and huge picnic areas. And the camping is very, very popular here because we're close to the freeway, and we're about halfway between Portland and Salem. And so we have, well, like this weekend, we were full. And people can go biking and on the bike trails and walking on hiking trails. We're also the north end of the Willamette Bike Trail. And so that kind of brings people in on bikes, things that direction. It goes all the way south through the valley.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I thank you for sharing with us.
You're welcome.
And I think we'll probably be back again.
Well, I hope you will.
Okay.
Good.
Thank you, Mark.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, I'm back again, and I'm here with Corinne, and she is the Public Program Volunteer Coordinator at Champoeg. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I work for Friends of Historic Champoeg, and we are a nonprofit organization that is here to interpret the natural and cultural history of Champoeg State Heritage Area. And we are volunteer dependent because we are a nonprofit, and we are hosting all kinds of events this summer coming up to kind of support our mission and to support the Champoeg State Heritage Area. There's a ton of history that actually is connected directly to our statehood that has happened here at Champoeg. So our goal is to share that history with the public, and we do so through our living history programs and our education programs. Living History takes place starting in July, every Saturday, all through the summer.
Oh, fun.
And our education programs take place mostly in the spring. We have some school programs that the kids are able to come out on field trips. So we service 1st through 8th graders all through the spring. And all of that, any income we generate goes right back into our organization, into the mission of interpreting more history. So this weekend we're hosting our quilt show, which is kind of one of our kickoff events. Last weekend we had Founders Day. That celebrated the actual placing of the stake that is now the historic monument of the provisional government vote that took place in 1843 that kind of planted the seeds of our statehood. So we kind of have a slow start, and then starting in July, things really get going, and we have all kinds of fun activities that are out near our historic heirloom garden that's outside. So,
okay. And you have barn dancing?
We have barn dances. We have 3 barn dances coming up this summer. They're on Saturday evenings, once a month. You can check our website, and the whole schedule is on champoeg.org website.
Okay.
And so we have lots of fun activities coming up, and hopefully the weather will hold out for us, and we'll have a good summer planned.
Okay. Well, it's been wonderful being here, and we're going to enjoy some of the exhibits and the quilt show. And thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for coming.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're in the part of the Visitor Center dealing with the vote of 1843. In May 2nd, 1843, the citizens here decided that they needed to form some kind of a government. Their leading pioneer, Ewing Young, had died without a will, any known heirs, and no way to probate his estate. They also were having a problem with wolves decimating their cattle herds, and they had had a series of meetings as to how to deal with this problem. Their most prominent concern was that they had absolutely no way to file their land claims. They had come off the trail in 1843 and found their land claims, but there was no land office, there was no county assessor, there was no way to record your claim. Further immigrants were coming off the trail, and they would come and contest the owner's right to the claim because he had no proof of ownership. So they wanted some form of government. The French-Canadian trappers retired from the Hudson's Bay Company were loyal to the Hudson's Bay Company, and they were loath to become Americans. The Americans were used to government. They wanted a way to settle their problems and to file their claims and their concerns. So they met right down here. There's an obelisk down on the flat by the Pioneer Mother's cabin in the pavilion, and they held a vote. And as you can see behind me, there was a very large gathering of men, and it was a very noisy discussion. Lots of people resentful of the Americans wanting to move away from the Hudson's Bay Company, and lots of Americans very, very determined that they wanted a government of their own. The vote was very close. We understand it was 52 to 50 in favor of going to Congress and asking them for status as a provisional government. Joe Meek, who was a very flamboyant ex-mountain man, was very impatient with all of this discussion. He finally stepped forward. Now this is a story. He finally stepped forward and said, "Everyone in favor, stand over here. Those opposed, stand over here." So 52 to 50. So when it became time to send an emissary to Washington, they sent Joe Meek, and he and a friend went in winter from here to Washington, D.C. And when he arrived, some gentlemen met him, and they said, "We have a hotel room for you. Come on, we'll buy you a drink, and then you can get all cleaned up and go before Congress." And he said, "Oh, no, I'm going just the way I am." And of course, he was all dirty and raggedy. He said, "I want them to see what an Oregonian looks like." Well, he had a little entree. His cousin was the wife of the president, and this was President James Polk, who was Manifest Destiny. He was the one very interested in the United States moving to its western territories. So Joe Meek went before Congress and gave his petition, and that started us off to statehood.
Okay.
Welcome again to Oregon Quilting, and we are at Champoeg Park at the Quilt Show. And I have with me Karen Stevens from the Speckled Hen, and she's going to tell us a little bit how she started quilting and why this quilt show is happening.
All right. Well, Speckled Hen Quilts has had numerous stops along the way, but I started out as Boone's Ferry Country Collectibles doing antiques. And then I moved into the town of Aurora with my antiques. And along the way, I decided that I wanted to be back again in my own building, and I waited 3 years for the Jacob and Elizabeth Miley House, which is the historic 1865 log salt box, one of only 2 left in the state of Oregon. And I waited actually 3 years for that building to be restored. And with that in mind, I changed my name to Jacob's House, which is Jacob and Elisabeth's Miley's house. And so I spent 9 years in that building, and when I went into that building, I decided I needed something to fill it up. So I put fabric in, and the rest is kind of history. I started out with antiques, of course, and I went into the fabrics and decided a quilt shop was more fun than antiques.
Oh,
And
I agree completely.
I love to design, and so I design most of my quilts, not all. I love the sampler quilts, which behind Elisabeth is one of the sampler quilts. I probably do approximately 50 or more quilts per year, some little ones and some medium-sized. A few are bigger, but most of them are just to show off the fabric or the design. The one behind me here is actually my fabric that was designed in 2009, and this is apron strings. I purchased a quilt top, an antique piece in a flea market. And how you become a fabric designer of reproduction fabrics is you must own the fabric. So I purchased that quilt top and was approached by a fabric company to do a line of fabric for them.
Wonderful.
And this is late 20s, early 30s. There were 16 pieces in the line, so apron strings, the first line. Then I did a second line, Mama's Favorites. It also had 16 pieces. And then the last line was Lots of Dots, and that had 17 pieces. So with those in mind, when you do a line of fabric, you have to have some kind of a quilt to send to International Quilt Market, which people from all over the world come to International Quilt Market to buy all their fabrics and notions and books and patterns. And so I don't actually market my patterns anywhere but in my shop and on my website. But I do at least 2 quilts per year for shop hops. And we have another shop hop coming up. There's Lazy Days of August, which is, of course, in August.
Wonderful.
And that's the 8th through the 18th of August. And then we do one in actually it's the winter, and it's called Winter Winds. And we have a different theme for every shop hop. And this one is going to be Little Stitches for the Lazy Days. And then in Winter Winds, the quilt that's behind you is Winter's Bounty, and that was 2011 February. So they're always samplers because depending on how many shops to sign up for the shop hop, it's my part to make the pattern because I'm the one that doing these shop hops. So I design a quilt specifically for the shop hop, and you have to have as many pieces as there are shops in the participating, and so they each have a part to hand out. So we counted a while ago, and there were 15 quilts in this shop hop. So this next shop hop in August, I have 20 shops. So I just finished designing that quilt, and it's not made yet, but all the quilts have their patterns, or all the shops have their patterns to make the quilt, and we'll see what they choose. It's up to the individual shops what fabrics they use. Some of them will use batiks or florals. I prefer either 30s or the 1800s reproduction fabrics. That's kind of my take on fabrics. When I first started into the quilt world, per se, there weren't a lot of reproduction 1800s fabrics around. Right. And I really like the old antique quilts, so that was my venue to work from. And I also like the 30s, and I collect antique 30s quilts because they're easier to find.
That's very true.
So over the years, I've done a number of quilts for Wyndham Fabrics, for Andover Fabrics, for display representing their lines of fabrics that they put out. And when you design a quilt for something like that, you have to use everything that's in the line, and some of these fabric companies get a little wild and crazy and they want 80 pieces in a line. That means there's 4 designs and different colors in it.
Yes, yes.
But some of the quilts in the show today are representing those quilts that I did.
Okay.
And that's a challenge for me. I make patterns from those and sell the patterns, but I don't really give my patterns out other than freebie. If you want one of my patterns free, come and do the shop hop.
Shop hop, yes,
Or
yes.
like this one, apron strings, that you can go to andoverfabrics.com and get the apron strings pattern. The line is no longer available, but the pattern is, and it's on their free patterns on their website. And they also have a Mama's Favorites pattern. And I did not design that one. I designed the fabric, but not the quilt. And then Lots of Dots would be the last one, and there is a pattern for that also, and it's here in the show. So,
How many of your quilts are in the show? This one.
Well, I didn't count all of them, but I know there's over 40. And like I said, I know I have over 150 quilts. A lot of them are small quilts like this, and we do a small quilts club, and this is called, this particular one was taken from a book called Civil War Sewing Circle. So the patterns are pretty simple from the Civil War period, and these are representative of fabrics that would have been from that era. So these I did actually quilt because there's not much quilting on them. The larger quilts, I have someone else. I have a couple different long arm machine quilters that do the finished quilting on it, and the only thing that I say to them is, please respect my design, enhance it, but don't cover it up.
Yes.
Because I want people to see the design of the pattern. And their quilting usually looks pretty good.
Well,
Few of them.
Thank you for sharing with us today, and it's a pleasure to see all your quilts.
Thank you.
And we'll see you next time on Oregon Quilting.